November has emerged as one of the most critical months in the war in Ukraine so far. Russian forces have increased pressure across several fronts simultaneously, forcing Ukrainian defenses into an increasingly difficult position. At the same time, Ukraine has been shaken by a major corruption investigation, challenging public trust in the authorities during an existential struggle for state survival. Meanwhile, Washington's position has shifted. Under the Trump administration, the United States is no longer acting solely as Ukraine's primary military supporter, but increasingly as a mediator, pressing Kyiv toward a controversial peace proposal. In this video, we will take a comprehensive look at these developments, examining the battlefield situation, internal challenges, and the political pressure shaping Ukraine's choices today.
Before focusing on recent battlefield developments, it is important to step back and look at the war from a broader perspective. At the beginning of the full-scale invasion, Russia publicly stated several goals, including the so-called demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, along with protecting Russian-speaking populations and reshaping the European security order. If demilitarization means reducing Ukraine's military to irrelevance, then this objective has clearly failed. Ukraine entered the war with a relatively small force, largely equipped with aging Soviet-era weapons. Today, the picture is fundamentally different. Ukraine now fields modern Western tanks, artillery systems, multiple launch rocket systems, long-range missiles, advanced air defense platforms, and combat aircraft. In parallel, Ukraine has expanded its domestic military production, particularly in drones, electronic warfare systems, and long-range strike capabilities. Rather than being disarmed, Ukraine's military has become more capable, more technologically advanced, and more experienced than at any point in its modern history. Manpower tells a similarly complex story. According to official statements, Ukraine's armed forces have expanded to hundreds of thousands of personnel, far exceeding their pre-war size. However, this expansion has come at an enormous human cost. While exact casualty figures remain unknown, open-source estimates suggest that hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers have been killed, wounded, or permanently removed from service since 2022. These losses include many experienced officers and frontline veterans, losses that are deeply felt across Ukrainian society. Yet, from a purely military standpoint, prolonged conflict also produces experience. Ukraine's army today is battle-hardened, with a generation of soldiers and commanders shaped by years of high-intensity warfare. This reality highlights a paradox. Despite severe losses, the Ukrainian military as an institution is more capable and professional than it was at the start of the invasion. Another central claim of the Russian invasion was denazification. In practice, this term has been used to justify the removal of Ukraine's current political leadership. Yet this objective has also failed. Ukraine's government remains in place, and political divisions that existed before the war have largely disappeared in the face of the invasion. Even potential political rivals to President Zelensky come from the military and security establishment, figures who are openly hostile to Russian aggression. There is virtually no realistic path for pro-Russian political forces to gain power in Ukraine for the foreseeable future. Ironically, the invasion itself has eliminated any remaining political space for Russian influence within Ukraine's democratic system.
Territorial control remains one of the most visible measures of success in war. Since the start of the invasion, Russia has captured and lost major cities, including Kherson, while failing to seize Kyiv, Kharkiv, or Odessa. Control over large parts of Donbas has been achieved, but Ukraine still holds some of the most heavily fortified areas. Russia has also failed to fully capture the Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, while Ukraine continues to maintain access to the Black Sea. The most significant territorial achievement for Russia remains the land corridor connecting Crimea to Russian-controlled territory. Overall, Russia's territorial gains have been costly, limited, and far from its initial ambitions.
Despite these setbacks, the current phase of the war favors Russia in one crucial way. Russia has successfully imposed a war of attrition. Since the failed Ukrainian counteroffensive in 2023, Moscow has largely dictated the tempo of operations, choosing where and when to attack. Rather than rapid breakthroughs, Russian forces rely on sustained pressure, infantry assaults, drone warfare, and gradual advances. Cities like Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and now areas near Pokrovsk illustrate this slow, grinding approach. Ukraine continues to defend fiercely, but manpower shortages, fatigue, and command challenges have become increasingly visible. Desertions and unauthorized absences reflect not a lack of patriotism, but the immense psychological and physical strain of prolonged warfare. Military pressure is compounded by internal challenges. In November, Ukraine's anti-corruption institutions launched a high-profile investigation involving senior officials and state-owned enterprises. While the very existence of such investigations demonstrates institutional resilience, their timing has had a deeply demoralizing effect. For soldiers at the front and civilians under constant attack, corruption scandals undermine trust and raise difficult questions about sacrifice and accountability during wartime.
The air war continues to shape daily life in Ukraine. Russian missile and drone attacks now occur several times a week, targeting energy infrastructure, transportation networks, and urban areas, while Ukrainian air defenses intercept the majority of incoming threats. No system can provide total protection. At the same time, Ukraine has expanded its own long-range strike capabilities, focusing primarily on Russian energy infrastructure. These attacks aim to weaken Russia's economy, but so far they have not reached a level capable of forcing a strategic collapse.
Against this backdrop, a new peace proposal has emerged, promoted by Russian and American intermediaries. The plan envisions freezing the front lines, limiting Ukraine's military, abandoning NATO aspirations, and ceding control over remaining parts of Donbas in exchange for vague security guarantees and phased sanctions relief for Russia. In Ukraine, this proposal is widely viewed not as a compromise, but as capitulation. Kiev has signaled willingness to discuss a ceasefire, but refuses to surrender territory without concrete, legally binding security guarantees. For now, Ukraine's red lines remain clear, while Russia continues to bet on exhaustion rather than negotiation. After nearly 4 years of war, Russia has failed to achieve its original strategic objectives. Yet Ukraine faces a long and painful struggle with no easy choices ahead. The outcome of this war will not be decided solely by territory gained or lost, but by endurance, political will, and the ability of each side to sustain pressure over time. The question remains not whether Ukraine can resist today, but how long it can do so and at what cost.